The basic things that you will need to do a paper piecing project are the hexagons, thread, needle, maybe some scissors, rotary cutter, and that's pretty much it. It's a very portable project. I am doing this size hexagons, pretty standard. Let me show you here on my mat. And they are what would be called a 1-inch hexagon, because they measure it the side to side, not point to point. Now I will say that this says it's 2-inch, but that's because point to point it is 2-inch. But in the real English paper piecing world, you measure the straight side of your hexagon. So that is a 1-inch hexagon. And the fabric squares that you need pretty much just need to have so that the hexagon will fit on there with a good margin all the way around. If they're too small, then you might not have enough seam allowance, especially at these far points. I usually just leave them square and fold the sides in and end up with a back like that that's pretty much covered. For a while, I was taking the time to kind of make them into hexagons with these scissors, but it was just an additional step that didn't really need to be done, and it made all these little bits of leftover fabric. And I didn't find when I was assembling that the ones that the fabric folded all the way over were any better or worse than these kind. So that's what I have done. So for these 1-inch hexagons, which again are 2 inches from point to point, I typically cut at least a 2.5-inch square. But I have found recently that if I go closer to 2 3/4, if I have enough fabric that I'm cutting from my scraps, it just gives me a little more wiggle room. I usually cut a big stack of fabric, random colors, and I spend some time based up a whole bunch of hexagons. But this little case makes a wonderful little storage and portable work bin, because I can put my finished ones here. I can put a bunch of my pre-cut templates in here. I can put my pin cushion, take it off my wrist. I can put my thread and my thread snips and my fabric squares. And then if I know I'm going to be sitting waiting somewhere, I can just throw this in my tote bag or my bag, what have you, and it's a nice portable project. If I just make all the basic parts, the squares, the templates ahead of time, then sitting and basting them goes really quickly. Now let's move on. When it comes to the paper shapes to make your hexagons on, or any other shape, but I'm using mostly hexagons here, you have a couple options. One option is to purchase pre-made hexagons or whatever shape you'd like to make. And that's how I started out. These came, I think, a pack of 100 or 200. They're cardboard. Now I've used these a couple times, so the problems I was having with them are a little less now than they were when I first got them. And we're going to talk about basting here in a second, but I started with glue basting them, and I found that after I made all my little hexagons, that the ones like this that were, especially the ones that were glue basted, but some of that was user error, I found that, and I'll show you when we get to the assembly part, I didn't like the stiffer cardboard. And you may find you prefer a different way, but I'm going to show you the way that I have found that I like it. I like to use up waste. I don't like to purchase new, but of course I didn't know what I didn't know when I started. So once I discovered that I didn't like the stiffer cardboard ones, I decided to go a different way. And I bought a set of these hexagon punches. I have 3 sizes because I wasn't sure what, I definitely wanted the size that I'd already started with, but I thought maybe I'd do some smaller hexagon projects, which this little wrist pincushion was one. So I got the set of 3. So with this, I can make my own, and I can make them quickly, and I can use up junk mail, or this happens to be a Dahlia catalog that I got this spring. I've experimented with different weights of paper, and some I use, like the postcards or the covers of magazines or catalogs that are a little stiffer. So it has been election season, so a lot of us have been getting like election postcards, candidate postcards in the mail. A lot of inserts, the subscription inserts inside of magazines, etc. There's a lot of options for this kind of postcard weight. And that's probably the happy medium that I have found. It is flexible enough, but it's without being too stiff. But these pages of catalogs, I have found, they're a little thin. They might not be as reusable as the stiffer ones, but I can make a lot of them. And once you kind of get the technique, the chances of you getting the shape wrong because they're not stiff enough to fold the fabric around lessen with practice. That's what I do. I'll just show you real quick. I can stick this in here, punch, oops. Now some of you may have hand or wrist issues and this won't work for you, so that's why they have pre-made ones. There are another bunch. I have not tried glue basting with the thinner ones yet because I've discovered personally I don't like glue basting. Do what works for you. I thought I was going to really like glue basting, but I don't, because mainly I'm doing this because I like to have something to do with my hands. Thread basting works better. Can I go faster when I glue baste? Sure, but this isn't about speed. This is about process. Now let me show you some of the other tools that would be useful, come in handy when you're doing this project. One, I have found some kind of wrist pincushion is very handy because you're putting things, and I just tend to lose my needle all the time. So, and of course you'll need a needle, maybe a couple needles. I don't have a suggestion for what size or type of needle, something sharp. And just like I noticed the other day when I was thread basting some of these, that the needle I was using was just, I had to really force it through. And I got thinking, well, I change my sewing machine needle pretty regularly because over time the end gets dull. And here I'm going through paper and cardstock. So of course, just like you don't use your fabric scissors on paper, it's going to get dull over time. Sure enough, I switched out to a different needle and made myself so much happier. You'll need some thread, your basting thread, any color, because you're going to pull it out eventually. I also find these little clips can come in handy, and depending, you may or may not want some kind of thimble. I think that those are the main tools. A pair of sharp scissors for trimming fabric can come in handy, and some kind of thread snips. Okay, let me show you how I do the thread basting and use some of these things. So again, this one is from that catalog. It's not particularly sturdy. So what I might do on this one to just hold everybody in place while I start, plus it's glossy paper, so it's a little slipperier. I'll just stick a clip on there. I fold my first corner. It is just like a hospital corner when you're making your bed, if you know how to do that, or a mitered corner. And then I come down from the back, what will be the back side of the hexagon. And I pull the thread kind of in the middle, doesn't have to be right in the middle, but just, you know. And I pull till I have about a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch of thread. And then I just put my thumb on it to hold it so it doesn't come out. That's why having the extra clip there can help. And then I come up one side of my little corner pleat and go over the other side. Then I just move on, fold the next side in, and repeat that all the way around. After 2 or 3 corners, you usually don't have to really hold that center tail, but you can if you want. Or you could move it so it's under your clip, and that'll help hold it too. So then when I get to the last side, I take the clip off, and that's why the elastic band on my wrist pincushion comes in handy. And I'll show you here. I'm gonna do this. There's 2 more corners that I have to do. And on this last corner, I like to keep it going in the same way as all the others. You can see how it, Okay, so here I've got it pasted, and I just, snip that again, so it's about a 1/2 inch or so. Put my needle in my pin cushions, I don't drop it or lose it. And there you have it. Now, but see, if they're this way, it's kind of like doing when you nest your seams in quilting. They'll nest, this one is on top, that one's on top. So when you come to the corner, you have less bulk. But look at this one. When I was glue basting, the last side, I just folded over and didn't, they're all going the same direction except for that one. But then look, when you're here, you've got the double fabric on both sides. That makes it a little bulkier. That's just a little tip that I have figured out as well. Now, so there is how to baste them together. Now we're going to move on to assembling them, sewing them together. And you don't need to change your thread to match each of your hexagons, at least in my experience and my opinion, because I'm doing this project that has such a large variety of colors. I'm just picking something neutral. But again, any sewing thread you have works. And you could probably use up some of your oddball colors if you're doing something multicolored like this. So you're going to take, and in this case I want definitely different colors because I want my finished product to be very random. If I were doing something more like this, I would make sure I had my 6 of all one color and my center color. All right, so I'm going to start out with 2 that are opposite colors, and oh good, I have one with the cardboard and one without, so that'll help. If you want, you can put one of these clips on it to hold everybody together, and there's a knot in my thread, and there we go. I'm gonna start, I'm right-handed, I start at the right corner. And let me also, another tool that if you're of a certain age that might come in handy are some magnifying glasses. These also conveniently have a light on them. So when I'm not sitting somewhere that has bright light, I can put these on. And these also come with different strengths of magnifiers depending on how nearsighted or farsighted you are. I find them invaluable now as I have gotten a little older. Okay, so you start and you're pretty much just kind of whip stitching. The needle you want to go through perpendicular to the folded edges here, the seam, so that on the correct, sewing the seam there straight, if that makes sense. Then you're just going to come over. I hope you can see because I'm trying to get it where I can see. Okay. Now this is where place where I found the glue basting, and again I said it was probably more user error than anything, and I learned as I went along. But at first I was pulling the fabric really tight around the template as I was gluing it, and that didn't give me much freedom here at the fold to get my needle through, and I was struggling. And it's kind of when I decided that I didn't like glue basting, but then I did glue baste a few where I gave myself a little more space there, a little, you know, not pulling them as tight as you would if, I don't know, like you're framing something or doing upholstery or something. Anyhow, you're going to go all the way from one end to the other, and see again, this fold, this double is here and this double is here, so they're going to nest a little nicer. You don't really notice that so much when you're doing this step, but when you take the paper out and you try to get it flat, it'll help. Now you can knot off right here and trim your thread and then start the next section, or you can do something else. For this one I'll show you the something else, but I do still like knot here and maybe make a couple little tiny, well, they're all tiny stitches right at that corner just to secure everything. And then I'm going to float underneath the folded edge here, oops, up to this next corner. So underneath the fabric within the fold, and it's hidden in there. Now we're going to open this up. I should have done that first. So now the thread ended here. We ran it underneath to here. I don't do this very often, but I'm just going to show you this just for the sake of showing you this. I'm going to take my next one, and this one is going to go in here. So I'm going to match up that edge. Again, you can clip them together if you want, and stitch along. With the lighter weight paper or cardstock templates, if your needle goes into them a little bit along the edge, it's not that big of a deal and it's not that difficult because they'll tear away really easy. With the harder cardboard ones, I don't know if you can see, they did that, but it made removing them a little harder. Okay, now I'm getting into this corner where three hexagons are going to meet. And I like to, oops, I missed the red fabric. Take a couple extra stitches right there in the corner. And sometimes I do a little locking stitch where I get the loop and then I run the needle through the loop and pull it down. That way, when the whole thing is assembled, those aren't going to pull apart. Now see, that doesn't really match up perfectly, but that's the beauty of fabric. We can make it match. And after we remove all the templates and give our whole finished piece a good pressing, it'll lie flat, trust me. So here is a good example. We have one of those older cardboard ones in the middle here. And what you need to do this seam is to fold that in half. And then, again, just do that last seam all the way again. And here I'm at the end, and I'm not going to carry my thread from there to the next corner. I'm just going to make a knot here. And then quite often I like to just stitch backwards 2 or 3 times and then clip my thread. So that shows you how to do just a joining 2 of them and then adjoining another one to those 2 to make this little triangle shape. Now, if I were making a flower like this one, I would obviously have my center one and matching ones all the way around. So let's say on this one, the green is my center. Now the next one I would attach this one, and then that one would be on there all the way around. Then the last one you're going to have, if you're doing a flower like this, is you'd have 3 seams. So you'd start by doing that one, then you would do this one, and then you would do this one. As you get working, you're going to have a bunch of them connected. And how I like to work, and again, everybody's way is different. The Grandma's Flower Garden, I make a bunch of the rosettes, the circles. But this one, I'm making a larger miscellaneous mixed color piece. And right now I have, they're over there under the cat, so I can't show you at the moment, but I have 2 larger pieces that I'm starting to connect together. But how do I get to one large piece? So here's one section. And this is, if I were making a huge bed quilt or something like that, I would work in sections like this. First, I would start in like groups of 8 or so little clusters, and then I would start sewing those together until I got a size. And then again, portability is the key to this project. So I work in small clusters, then I put those clusters together into a medium cluster, and then I put the medium clusters together until I have a big square, rectangle, whatever size I'm going for. So here are just, I'm working on a row-ish, like 3 rows, I guess, to go along the side of a narrower one that attaches to the one that I just showed you. So I have these 2, and so now I'm going to try to attach these, and then when these are attached, I can attach them to the side of the longer one and just keep moving on modularly. Now I want to just show you the difference between the one I did earlier with the cardboard versus this one. I'm folding the red one, and that is one of the really thin catalog pages, and it just folds so much easier, and I can get so much more accuracy in the point where all the 3 shapes come together. Okay, I'm going to continue sewing these 2 parts together, and then I'll show you taking out some of the papers. Now, I don't want you to think that if you're going to make a huge paper-pieced quilt or wall hanging or even a tote bag that you need to cut 1,000 or buy a whole bunch of these hexagons, because as you're working, you can take some of the hexagons out and reuse them, the templates out. So here, my big one, oh wait, are there some in here? Oh, there are. Okay, I'll show you on one of my bigger pieces. I thought I'd removed them all. My bad. So here's the back of one of my medium pieces. I have removed the templates from a lot of this. When you're removing templates, all you have to remember is that you have to be sure you leave the templates in all the edge pieces where it's going to be joined to the next section if you're building on. But anything in the center that's already had all 6 sides, if you're doing hexagons, stitched to another hexagon, those can come out. So what I usually do, if I have thread basted and I haven't tied any knots, this is really easy. I just go through here, grab a larger tapestry type needle, and just use the eye end. And you go through and you just pull them out. Easy peasy. Now that one I think is knotted or caught somewhere. There we go. There's the loose end of it. Let's say I've done a bunch of those, and now it's time to take the paper out of the inside. You can just reach in here and grab it, and that's perfectly reusable. Even though that's one of the really thin ones, it hasn't torn, and it's still got all 6 even sides. You just gotta, again, where's that needle? Got to get under the edge. Now this is more like a postcard weight. So these are real. This is my favorite. If I've got enough cardstock type junk mail, that's what I like to use. But let me go over here to one that I glue basted of the original store-bought type. See, those you just kind of gotta get under and loosen the glue. And that is a benefit of having that little hole in the middle, especially if you have a small crochet hook that'll fit in there. I think I over glued a lot of these. I will confess. Maybe my dislike of glue basting is my own failings. But see, I'm struggling. I feel like pulling the thread out is quicker than trying to get this glue pulled up. And like I said, for me, it's more about the process than time saving or anything like that. But you can just go through, and with the thread basted ones, you just got to find which corner is the first one to come loose and go through, and then pull the paper out. Again, that one, junk mail, a little thicker, but does the job. Glue basted. Now you can, especially if you're working on a smaller project, just leave the papers in until you're done and have an afternoon of pulling the papers out. Or if you're trying to not have to make hundreds of the templates, make enough for your basic size and then remove them as you go along. I got inspired to do this project, as one would not be surprised, by watching other people on YouTube do it. And I was like, ooh, that looks fun. It looks like a way I can continue to use up scraps and be sustainable and make something pretty. And also it was nice and portable. And just kind of meditative, I can't say that word right now. And there's enough variety. I can spend one day basting, making the hexagons. I can spend other days stitching them together. And I can really be mindless and sit and take the papers out when they're done. I just like to have a variety of projects going on at any given time, but also ones that take different parts of my brain to do. Now, some of these I did forget and put knots in, so sometimes I get to one like that one where, yeah, there's a knot on the back side, and I can just grab it and pull it out from that side. But again, I'm trying to, as much as I'm not like trying to do this quickly and like, it's more about the process than it is about the finished product. I don't like to have to work harder than I have to if it's something annoying like cutting a knot off. Okay, so now this one I might have stitched through the edges a little bit. Nah, not too bad. Okay. So you may ask, I think that's enough of that. Well, what am I going to do with this thing? I don't know. I don't have any intention of making this into a full quilt, even a wall quilt. But it might be, and I also have no need for like a table runner or anything like that. So, well, you might ask yourself, well, what else are you going to do with a bunch of stitched together hexagons? What I'm thinking I want to do is something a little more artistic and more creative. But right now, I am just enjoying the process, seeing how it comes together, because I am not doing this with any particular plan. I am not planning or positioning any of my colors. I try really hard not to have two of the exact same fabric next to each other, but sometimes it happens. But the other thing is these are all hand-dyed fabrics or ice-dyed fabrics, so even within the same piece of fabric, you're going to have different gradations and colors and things like that. So it's really almost impossible to get two that are, I know those are two from the same piece of fabric, but they're different enough that you may or may not know that they're from the same piece of fabric. My vision that as it is right now is to just enjoy the process and keep making this bigger by section until I think it's done. Like, it'll tell me when it's done. Or, well, I don't think I'll ever run out of fabric, especially hand-dyed fabric, so I can't use that as a guideline. Like, when you're done out of fabric, then you're done. No, that's not going to happen, because there's always more fabric. I think it's whenever my hyperfixation on paper piecing comes to an end, or I get, it'll come back. This is a fun process. I resisted it for so many years, and now that I have given in to the temptation of paper piecing, English paper piecing, it's something I think I'm always going to go back to. But I also know that something else will spark my attention, will draw my attention, will spark my interest and spark some joy, and I will put this aside. And if I find myself doing that, or just, like I said, deciding it's enough, I've done enough, I've connected enough hexagons, I have a big enough piece of put together pieced fabric, then I have some ideas of what, a bigger vision of what I would like this to become. So all I can say is stay tuned and see what this becomes. If you have a suggestion, an idea, put it in the comments. I'd like to hear what other people think would be fun, or what they would do, what you would do with, let's see, probably 4 or 5 foot long by 2 to 3 feet wide. That's kind of the working plan right now of what I have going on here, but it may end up bigger. won't end up smaller because I almost have enough hexies made to do that. What would you do with it? My idea is, in my brain, is that it's going to be a bit more of an art piece. That this is going to just be the foundation for something more. How exactly that's going to happen, I'm not sure. So like I said, if you're interested in seeing how it progresses, there will probably be future videos on it. Maybe not right away, because it's going to take me a while to finish just this part, but it's going to be something. We do know that. It will be something. Okay, thanks for being with me. I hope you enjoyed this little project. Maybe because this is a little more non-traditional way, the methods of paper piecing, I do it very traditionally with all my techniques, but these fabrics, putting them together in this way might be a little non-traditional to what you might be used to seeing in paper piecing, English paper piecing. So I hope maybe it inspired a little something for you. Please let me know and tune in next time and see what I'm up to. Thanks for being with me.